All right. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Welcome to another episode of the DevOps Insight Forum. I'm going to go back to the slide mode. The DevOps Insight Forum, it's a monthly open space for professionals to chat about software development, delivery, and reliability. I'm Sam Fell, and today we're talking about the journey from legacy to cloud-native architectures. What is the tipping point between cloud-native-like and truly cloud-native? Is it simply adopting new practices, processes, and technologies like containers or serverless? How do you empower your teams to take advantage of the unique features of cloud computing to power more reliable systems, reduce cost, and accelerate innovation? Join this panel as we discuss what do cloud-native tooling processes and practices look like, how to align teams using culture, automation, and measurement, and what are some of the challenges involved when evolving from a cloud-native application to a cloud-native organization. And I already see people from all over the world putting their hellos in chat. I love to see that, so please keep it coming. While you're introducing yourselves in chat, I'm going to ask our panelists to introduce themselves. I'm going to start with Mitch. Hi, Mitch.
Hey, Sam. Good to see you and the Sumo team, Bruno, and our great panelists today. I'm Mitch Ashley. I am principal with Techstrong Research and also CTO of Techstrong Group, the organization that helps put on this event. So thank you. Good to be here.
Nice to have you. Thank you for joining us. Sarah, we've been trying to get you on this program forever, and we're so happy that you're here. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Sam. My name is Zara Sayeda Team. I am a Senior Director for Business Strategy at Microsoft. Prior to that, I was at AWS, responsible for leading their go-to-market strategy for digital transformation, and really just kind of helping enterprise customers formulating their enterprise digital transformation strategy, leveraging AWS services. Really excited to be here and can't wait to dig in.
Lovely, thank you. Hello, Bruno from Croatia.
Hello, everyone. Good to see some of you and meet some of the other of you. I am Bruno. I'm one of the founders and head of strategy of Sumo Logic. Sumo Logic is a cloud-native platform for observability and security. And I'm really excited about this conversation because we spend a lot of time with our customers talking about this very topic.
Absolutely. Very good. Hello, Lee. Welcome.
Hi, Sam. I'm Lee Atichson. I'm a software architect, consultant, and author. I've spent 12 years at Amazon and AWS and another 10 years at New Relic. And I'm currently working on my second O'Reilly Media book on IT complexity. Should be out in a few months now, as well as another course on LinkedIn Learning and a bunch of other things like that. So I focus mostly on scaling, availability, cloud computing, application modernization, and I do my own consulting.
If people wanted to look up your book, what would that book be called?
Architecting for Scale is my main book. It's from O'Reilly Media. It's available in Safari or at tech bookstores anywhere, including Amazon, of course.
I love it. I love it. All right. And last but not least, Andy Mann, so great to see you. Welcome to the panel.
Hey, Sam. Hi, team. Maybe least. Let's find out, shall we? So Andy Mann, I am the CTO at QUMU. QUMU is a provider of cloud-first enterprise video as a service. So for large enterprises, we provide the platform to capture, store, deliver, and secure all of their enterprise videos.
Awesome. Well, we're happy to have you here. Your experience in cloud native is legendary, so we're happy to have you joining us. For those of you in the audience, many of you are far, far ahead of me on this, which is fantastic. This forum is for you. We're not putting it on so that the folks up here are going to learn something, although we will. We're doing it so that you're going to learn something. So ask questions, be involved in the chat, be respectful, or we'll just kick you from the program, and share feedback. If there's something that you'd love to see, like Enrico just asked if it would be possible to see the slides. Absolutely, we're happy to share the slides with you. I'm not sure how much value you'll get from the slides more than just the conversation, but so put your comments in the chat and we'll make sure we'll address them. If you have questions for the panelists, feel free to put them in there as well, and we will and we'll get to them. For now, just to make sure that your fingers work and that the chat is working, if you haven't already put your name in the chat, let us know where you're from, please do, and that would be fantastic. And now we're going to jump into some of the data readout. Our friends over at DevOps.com, Techstrong, they run a poll for us. And so in order to help make this session a little bit more data-driven, we've asked the community at DevOps.com for their opinions on a couple things. Before we get to their opinions, though, we'd like to ask you your opinion. So, Cody, can we get the first polling question, please? What are the elements of cloud native? Containers, microservices, cloud platforms, or DevOps? And this is actually supposed to be choose one or more. So people will just choose one, I suppose.
Yes, your top one, your top choice.
Choose your top one. What is your top element for cloud native? And that was my bad. I didn't tell Cody that we needed to program it that way.
We're
going to get
the results.
Yeah, we'll see the results. So, oops. Okay, sorry. Those are the DevOps.com results. All right. So, Cody, when you're ready, let's see what people chose as their top one. Microservices. Okay. So, microservices takes the day. And I actually think that this is a better way of asking the question. My mistake turned out to be the secret recipe, because I think this data is actually more interesting than the other data that we're going to see here in a minute, because people peanut buttered their answers across a lot of different things. So far and away, microservices are important, and the cloud platform are important elements. All right, very good. So let's jump into what did the folks on DevOps.com say? And again, I think that Cody, our mistake here was probably brilliant, is that everybody just said, yep, all of these things are elements of cloud native.
Especially
I love
interesting
the,
because
I love the answer on that we just got.
Right.
I love how it turned out.
That's a much better answer, I think, or much.
Yeah. I think
what's interesting too is DevOps was 2% on the audience poll. Here it's 22%. That's the one that had, I think, the biggest difference.
Oh,
Yeah, but that's the DevOps.com poll, right? So
Well,
there's a
this
little
is true.
bit of a bias there.
A little selection bias.
6%. Right.
It's that, and it's the fact that microservices is by far the leader here, and that it is bigger than cloud platforms. That is also telling.
Right. That abstracts.
I think
away
that's
the cloud.
an amazing point, actually. That you know, unless the word cloud platform was, do you include things like serverless? Do you include things like cloud data storage?
Yeah, exactly. And I was thinking exactly about serverless, right? Microservices. You can make them out of instances, out of containers, out of serverless, out of who knows what, right? They are a concept rather than a specific technology.
I agree. I think some people start thinking about serverless and microservices in the same concept, though, too. So I wonder how much of the answers we're getting here for microservices are people thinking about serverless, when I would normally think of cloud platform and serverless. It's an interesting question, anyway.
I think also look at microservices not as a technology, but as a design architecture, right, for software. Right. The others are, well, DevOps isn't, but containers and platforms are.
Yep.
It's really cool. I love how a perceived error, can actually sometimes shine a light.
It's a good lesson in that.
I love it. I love it. That's right.
Thanks, Sam.
Absolutely.
Good job.
I will make more errors. I promise. I promise. All right. So, where are you on your cloud native journey? Folks in the audience, we'd love to know where you are. We'll give people 30 seconds.
Jump right in there. Love to see your answers.
All right, 30 seconds. Let's see how we're doing. This is the first company. Sumo is the first company I've worked at that is a truly cloud native company. So I can tell you that there are lots of interesting discoveries for me over the past year as to what that means. It's really great. If you're not there, then I'm going to just make you envious. That's all. All right, Cody, let's see what we got. All right, so 1 or 2 cloud native applications is the biggest one. I'm glad to see a 4% on the what is cloud native. That makes me much happier than what the other data we're going to see is going to tell us. A lot of people investigating. About a quarter of the folks are investigating. Half of them have 1 or 2. And I'm imagining that the rest of it is all the legacy stuff that they're integrating with. And then 27% of us have gotten to a point where we live and breathe cloud native, which is great. Anything surprising?
What I would love to see this against company size too, to see if there's a correlation there. But You need a
Yeah.
larger data set, I think, to be meaningful there. But
And we'd have to
interesting to see what
I would
goes
sort of like to see this also cross-cut by role. I know from experience that executives and managers think they're further along than they are. Individual developers and engineers often have that imposter syndrome where they don't think they're as far as they actually are. But there, I think one or two cloud native applications is appropriate for most of the marketplace right now, quite frankly.
Excellent. All right. And I love seeing everyone saying hello on chat. So keep it coming. I love it. So many people from all over the world. Welcome. So this is what other folks on the DevOps.com, this was the scary metric that my brain almost exploded. What is cloud native? So that's one of the things that we can talk a little bit about today, if people want to talk about that. What surprises anybody about this data here from the DevOps.com poll?
Well, I think the point about our entire organization lives and breathes cloud native, that's a pretty good number, 25%. And I think it was above 30% in the previous slide, which is, to me, it's a little surprising, but that's pretty good.
It was actually 20 less than this for this audience.
23%.
24%.
Okay.
It moved around a little bit, so it might have been at 30 at one point. Yeah.
But still, I
What's
definitely agree with you,
surprising
Sarah.
is
The idea that I think there's perhaps some sample bias here. Certainly, most of my customers would never consider themselves entirely cloud native, even if they're struggling to be there. So I think it's a really good point.
I think a lot of people who answered the DevOps.com survey with what is cloud native then went and Googled it, and now today we have a smaller number.
That's right.
That's good. And that's why I think also the size of company might have an effect too. I work with a lot of companies that are, in more the startup realm where they say, well, we're going to start out cloud native and everything we're going to do is cloud native. So therefore, we don't have a product yet, but we're cloud native. And some of that fits in that mindset as well too. So it'd be interesting to see the organization size as well relative to these answers.
You're absolutely right.
Oh, sorry, Sarah.
No, please proceed.
I would just like to just highlight David in the chat asking about how much work. You can say you're cloud native, we've got one or two applications, but if they're your main application that constitutes 90% of the work, it becomes a slightly different metric too. Sorry, Zara, please go on.
Yeah, no, I was just agreeing with what was said here because, unless you're a startup that's born on the cloud, then truly you're living and breathing cloud native. Otherwise, for enterprises, that number just seems a bit off.
Yeah.
Agree with that.
It could be people with happy eyes, right? Happy ears. But that's great, right? Hopefully, maybe that's where 25% of the companies are. I answered that was our entire organization lives and breathes because that's what we do, which is freaking awesome. Okay,
Sam, I see what you put in the chat there too, and I that's a very good point. COVID did accelerate a lot of transformations. A lot of companies did a lot more cloud native work than they were planning on, just both because opportunistically they were able to, but also they were forced to in many respects.
Yeah, that's right. Their business demanded it. And then our final polling question, and these polling questions are taking a nice long time, which is good. It's going to eat into our time from before, or from the panel, but I think this is a great conversation. Is lift and shift cloud native?
And there is no what is lift and shift on this one, right?
And there's
You have to
only
Google
one right
that.
answer, but I'll let you try and figure out which is the right answer.
Boy, that's not going to bias the sample. No.
No. And there's so many people joining us from Canada. I just have to say, welcome back to the internet, Canada. We're happy to
Yeah.
have you.
What happened? Rogers was down, I guess.
All right. So if everybody's got their
I go offline for a day and the whole country disappears.
lovely. Is lift and shift cloud native? The predominance is no.
Yes, I love these
Fantastic.
answers.
And there is, so that makes me happy. And there's a couple questions around what is lift and shift. Lift and shift is just taking an on-premise WAR file and shoving it into a container and calling it a cloud native app. It's still
Moving
a
data
WAR file
centers from yours to the cloud, right?
and putting it in a container.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you
So-
don't even have to put in the
It's
container.
moving.
You just move from one server to another server and call it a day. And people call that a cloud transformation. And
Right?
Don't bias the answers yet.
It's funny that the yes keeps going up.
That's
even
right.
though we're-
And,
So I'd love to
this
understand
will
how.
be a great argument after we are done with this sampling.
I
Right.
think that
I'd love
means
to
you
have-
should stop talking if it keeps going up.
Right. I'm doing a disservice. So, but whoever is voting yes, I would love to hear in the chat if you have any thoughts or ideas about lift and shift and cloud nativeness. Would love to have your opinions about that in there. What did the folks on DevOps.com say? Yes, 26%, so a lot higher percentage. No, 41%. In my estimation, that's the right answer. And then what's lift and shift? Another perfectly acceptable answer for people that don't know. We don't get mad at people who don't know things. That's fine. I don't know.
Yeah, I kind of jumped the gun with what I said earlier, but the answers of what is lift and shift doesn't bother me at all. The answers of yes are the ones that I'm very interested in, because it's
You're right.
I don't understand that 26% number.
Well, and you have to remember you have a very broad audience on DevOps.com, from digital transformation executive, CIO to developer, right? So you have we have probably a more narrowly focused audience here. Generally, that tends to happen.
I just want to say to this question, is it cloud native? And I guess the difference between being a purist and being, very much like, okay, how do you define it? Versus what's the benefit? Is there a benefit towards migration to the cloud and eventually getting there to do it this sort of a midway step by starting to move workloads to the cloud? Do you get benefits to actually eventually end up in what purists would call a cloud native? And I would say that there is, and I would say that we should encourage it wholeheartedly, because I think there's a lot of people and companies and talent gap that if you don't start, and if you sort of feel like it's got to be this pure architecture re-architected for the cloud, a lot of people will never even begin it. So
I 100% agree with you. I mean, it's, we're talking about what the word cloud native means, but not what it means to be in the cloud.
No, I get it. I know that it's
belong in the
bit
cloud
ambiguous
that aren't
area.
necessarily cloud native, but are still see value of being moved to the cloud. So I agree with you. There's there's value to lift and shift, absolutely.
Sure,
but it's just not. The question was whether it was cloud native or not. And,
just because you put an elephant in a tiger cell doesn't mean that it's a tiger. That's
exactly right.
All right. So we're going to jump into the panel process now. Bruno's already broached the topic that we'll be talking about in a little bit, which is sort of what's the benefit. We've got some great questions in the chat. I'm really loving the chat today. So whoever out there ate your Wheaties, you guys are just doing an awesome job. One of the things that David talked about is what portion of my 160 applications should be moved to the cloud. And so that's something that we can talk about. Before we get there, though, I want to ask these panelists, what does it mean to you to be cloud native? And Mitch, I saw you already answered in the chat, so I'm going to ask you to go first.
Yeah, there's a lot of definitions or ways to look at cloud native. One of them means whatever born in the cloud means, but I think that what that implies is kind of architected for the cloud. To me, I go to like CNCF, Cloud Native Computing Foundation types of definitions, and typically it's an application that's built using containers, using microservices. Serverless can be part of that, open source. So it's kind of built in a way that can be leveraged for a DevOps type process, so you can deliver software more quickly. It also can be leveraged via containers and microservices so that you can update things frequently and scale things in a different way than you might in a non-cloud native, non-microservice architecture. That's how I tend to think of it too. Oftentimes all of our terms get co-opted, right, by whoever is saying it to mean what's beneficial to them too. So there's the other side of that coin.
Awesome. All right. Andy, what are your thoughts, since you're sitting right next to Mitch on my screen?
Yeah, look, I tend to take a bit of a canonical view. I try to be more pragmatic generally. But when you talk about cloud native, I think that using the sort of capabilities that are only really available in the cloud, definitional capabilities. So I think about, networked, on demand, scalable on demand, both up and down, in and out. This lends itself, obviously, to a lot of technologies. So microservices, containerization, automation as well, especially around the CI/CD process. the site reliability engineering capabilities of having observability built into the platform itself, built into the application. So there's a lot of technology and capability that you can start to categorize, but I'd start with that sort of canonical definition, the NIST even, if I can be semantically ancient, and talk, exactly, right, the 5 characteristics that we all know, and the 3 services and so forth. If it's made for that to take advantage uniquely of those capabilities, then a lot of other things flow from there, I think.
Excellent. Yeah, I love that you brought up NIST, and I'm going to see if I can find, or if you find that link, go ahead and put it in there. And there's 12-factor apps, right? There's that whole 12-factor app definition that you could go by as well. I love it. All right, Zara, what are your thoughts on this? What does it mean to be cloud native for your customers or for your colleagues?
Yeah, and Mitch, kind of talked about born in the cloud, right? Which is spot on in the sense that there are so many terms that are out there. So there's born in the cloud, there is cloud first, there is cloud native, and that creates some of this confusion where we see some of those results, right? That we were just shocked to see. But it's hard to define these sometimes. But ultimately, if you're moving, from data centers to the cloud just by lift and shift, it's great because it'll help you get started, but you won't necessarily reap the benefits of the cloud, right? So cost reduction, increase in uptime, resiliency, you really do have to go through the process of re-architecting, the application to really decouple the architecture, to really, go deep into how do we make sure that if one piece dies, the other one just starts right away. So it's an exercise that's sometimes super daunting for organizations because they're like, oh my God, what if I re-architect this and the whole thing just fails? And, obviously we have tons of conversations with customers, helping them through the process. But I think that really is transforming the application to a cloud native application. It's okay to lift and shift, but then let's put in the time to really kind of re-architect it.
To re-architect. And, there's the strangler pattern where you move some of the stuff over into more of a cloud native service, and you leave some of the other stuff, people talking in the chat about mainframe. And I mean, there's a ton of other stuff that has to still be there. When's the last time, show of hands, when's the last time somebody retired an application? David's talking about 160 years of applications. I thought it was 160 apps, but it's 160 years of applications. So in Agile term, that's a lot of applications, but in 160 years of apps, it's probably 10 apps, something like that, right? Just these huge monoliths that do everything. So good luck trying to end of life that app, right? That won't be easy.
And Zara, thanks for bringing up the idea of cloud first, by the way. This is something we believe in at QUMU. We've got on-premises capabilities and edge and hybrid, but we look at cloud native as when we build first for cloud. We build first with cloud technologies. We deliver capabilities first to our cloud solution. So we are cloud first. I wouldn't say we're entirely cloud native at all. As I said, I think we're 1 or 2 applications into cloud native. But I think it's a really good way to progress towards cloud native is that cloud first approach. I really like that you brought that up.
So here's kind of my thoughts on this is I actually hate the phrase cloud native. And the reason why is because it brings up all this confusion. What does it mean to be cloud native, et cetera? And yeah, the best definition I've heard for cloud native is the CNCF definition. But the CNCF definition, which is basically microservices, containers, CI/CD, and one other thing, I forgot what it is offhand. But basically, it's such a limited view of the value of the cloud. And so I find it to be too limiting to be valuable. It really is. And you were talking about, what is it that you really care about when you move to the cloud? Well, what you really care about are things like, cloud optimized data stores, auto scaling, dynamic resource allocation, availability scaling, all of those sorts of things. The ability to have a at-scale dev environment at your fingertips. Just some amazing things that you can accomplish that way. And all of that is possible with what I would call a cloud-native application that has nothing to do with what people think of when they think of a cloud-native application. So I actually don't like the terms. I don't mind terms like cloud cloud first. It's a better term, maybe helps a little bit more. But I find the term cloud native just to be not a very good term because it seems to imply the wrong thing to wrong people. And that's kind of my take on that.
I'm getting an image. Sorry, Zara. I have one funny thing to say, and then I'll stop. I'll go to you. I imagine Lee, the Simpsons thing, old man yells at cloud. I'm imagining Lee as yelling at cloud native, right? Like cloud native. Rah! I love
That's
it.
like, get off my cloud native lawn. Get off my cloud native lawn.
All
I guess that's better than something they're saying donut.
You're so right, because, and then, where do you kind of draw the line that, okay, now we agree that this application is cloud native? There is no real set, black and white line either. It really comes down to the application, the environment, and so on and so forth. So it's definitely quite vague.
Yeah.
And by the way, we use cloud first, mainly because it's a very pragmatic approach for us, right? QUMU is a 20-year-old public company. We've had a cloud platform for 10 odd years, but it hasn't been cloud native in the ways that CNCF described, and even in the ways that we've described here today. But moving towards that and having that mindset of cloud first gets us towards cloud native. It's just a very pragmatic way for especially traditional companies, and I don't like the word legacy in the way we use it in OT, by the way, for a really practical and pragmatic way to move in the right direction stepwise. The first step is how you get there. And so the cloud first motif has been really important internally for us to just change mindset of what it means to be cloud and cloud native.
Yeah, I think continuums are what's really important here, right? There's a process you go through, there's steps you go through, there's a continuum, and everywhere along this continuum is a good place to be, and perhaps better than the place you were before. But just because you're here versus here or here versus here doesn't make you better than someone else, right? So questions like, questions like, how many apps are cloud native really doesn't matter. What more matters are how many of your applications are where they should be.
Yeah. I'll introduce
and
the
knowing
fact
where
that
they
there's
should
a lot
be,
of companies out there that will
go ahead, Bruno.
That will respond to this question and actually react to the CNCF definition, also saying, my apps conform to everything you said there, but they're not in the cloud. Right? They're being built as microservices there. They're scaling up, scaling down, they're responding, all these things, right? And I've been thinking about this quite a bit because I get this pushback a lot. And there's one thing that I'd like also to add to the conversation about what it might mean. To me, to some degree, it means that you are able to evolve your hardware at the same rate you're evolving your software, right? Your agile development is allowing you to change code very, very quickly, to push new code to production. And actual cloud, which is not true of sort of on-prem clouds, enables you to evolve the hardware at the same rate as you're evolving your software. And that's a little bit of a nuance that I've used sometimes with people to distinguish between sort of the scalable microservices versus in the cloud, similar to that.
Yeah, one of the things I use for talking about the value of the cloud, which is kind of related to that too, is the financial difference between capital expenditures and cloud expenditures, which are not capital expenditures. And the idea behind it is the cloud allows you to be disjointed from the hardware. And that doesn't mean you don't need hardware. So I don't like terms like serverless. It doesn't mean you don't need hardware, but it means you're disjointed from it. You don't care where the hardware comes from. You don't care whether the resources are there. You assume the resources are there when you need them. And you don't care what happens to the resources when you don't need them. And I think that's really one of the big aspects of the cloud that really is the most valuable. It's not whether or not it runs microservices or not. It's the fact that you can get the resources you need immediately and get rid of them immediately when you don't need them.
Nice.
Yeah, and Lee, one of the statements you made just got me super excited. You said, are all applications cloud native? Is that really a good measure of business value? Probably not, right? So it's really that shift in thinking about not measuring if all applications are cloud native, but actually thinking about uptime for the application, cost, and so on and so forth to really measure, are all the applications where they need to be, to your point. So that was awesome.
Great,
I
thank
love
you.
it. Zara, do you have any other thoughts about how we understand the value of cloud native to folks in either development operations or just a business strategy sort of level?
It really comes down to the business driver, right? I think having that conversation on why do we need to move to the cloud? Is it to reduce cost? Is it to become more agile? And agility obviously means that you're able to react to market needs super quickly. You're able to spin up applications. You're able to bring more solutions to the market faster. So really prioritizing what is the business driver, what is the main business driver. For some companies, it's cost reduction, and that's perfectly fine. For other companies, it's more about product development and go-to-market lead time and time to value. So once you've prioritized that, I think that should really help inform metrics and KPIs that we leverage to measure performance on the cloud migration. That are we really headed in the right direction or not?
I love that. And one of the questions in this chat here was about the metrics and the measurement and how do we do that. There was another question about what is lift and shift. We covered it a little bit earlier in the conversation, so you can watch it on the replay, but basically it's taking an old Word file, putting it in a container up in the cloud somewhere, or moving an application into somebody else's infrastructure. Awesome. Okay. Andy, thoughts on what the value to either development operations or business or all three?
Yeah, look, I've done a lot of research in my past lives, but let me just talk to the value that we look at in QUMU. So for our development team, it's about trying things. We can try new things. We can try them in small ways. We can, the whole fail fast, fail cheap, fail forward, fail small kind of mantra. We can try new things and test them out. We can roll them out into different regions for different customers at a time. So the development process in a cloud native environment becomes a lot easier. There's also a lot easier to work with deprecated code because you've sort of isolated that. For our operations team, it's about scalability for us. We have customers from, do webinars or town halls for 10, 20, 30, 40,000 people at a time. We've got to be reliable. We've got to be always on. And so being able to use cloud native services to scale out instantly, to provide backup encoders, for example, provide backup streaming for our clients, these sorts of things are critical. So for our business, that means we're super reliable, we're super scalable, we get new features out quickly for at least beta and testing and for individual clients. And so for us, as Zara said, actually, it's mostly about the agility for us. Yeah, we work with our cost and our cost management, but fundamentally it's really for us about agility for the business.
It's top line, not bottom line. Yeah, interesting. All right, excellent. Bruno, what are your thoughts on the value? Where are we finding value for development ops and business?
Many places, but I think, mostly I think the way I think about this, it is all about the rate of innovation, right? And I zoom out to, a lot of these companies that are moving to the cloud and are digital native or are sort of traditional businesses building digital parts of their business model. And I think, like everywhere, rate of innovation is what matters. And I think, we've invented agile to innovate, not because we like making changes in production all the time. Cloud has evolved to actually enable us to evolve our technology stack faster than we can do it ourselves. And, across development operations and business, ultimately going to the business, I think it is all about being able to move faster, to respond to business conditions faster, to do it in a way that responds to business conditions that no longer operates in sort of the physical constraints environment, right? Where you have physical distances to cover, to go do some shopping, to, entertain yourself. In the digital world, you don't have those. So there are no natural slowdowns and barriers to doing commerce and doing business in digital. And I think cloud and cloud native architectures and our modern development paradigms evolved to enable these digital businesses to actually capitalize on that and compete, be better than others in their industry. So that's kind of how I think about it, at the very sort of top of the pyramid.
Right. And as you were speaking, I was thinking, because I haven't really heard it come up yet, but I wonder if there are any security or compliance benefits of a cloud native architecture. Something for folks to think about. I'm going to ask Mitch to comment on the slide. What are your thoughts, Mitch? You're muted, my friend. I'm sure what you said was super
Thank
smart.
you. That was the best thing I had to say all
I'm
day.
sure. Yeah. Good luck repeating that.
Yeah, so much for that. Well, I think there are a couple of things that build on what particularly Lee and Zara had said. I've been on part of actually 4 journeys to the cloud, starting from we're not doing any cloud to moving to the cloud for different purposes. And each time it was for a different reason. So the projects that always fail, in my experience, are the ones that say, we're on Sybase and we need to be on Oracle, so let's move all our apps to whatever other thing that we're not on, right? Or we're not cloud, we need to be all cloud. That's usually bound to fail because it's not driven by a real need.
Project for project's sake, yeah.
Yeah, it's a technology looking for a solution, right? And, in one journey to the cloud, it was because we needed to create a place where we can build an integration layer to all of our products, but we didn't have a place to do it. Let's use that. Another case was we're supporting many, many development teams, and we can't do that in our current environment. How could we do this more dynamically and flexibly and automate it? Okay, that's a good place. The third case was we changed our funding model. We don't have the access to capital that we once had. Let's both lift and shift, and then we'll take parts of the key applications that we want to innovate on, and we'll turn that part to microservices. So, every person on the panel, every person on the webinar today has some place in their journey, and probably different places for different applications or different parts of their team. So that's what I would focus on, is like, what do we need? What do we need to do? What's the business asking us to do that we're really struggling for ways? And is cloud native, is cloud platform, is digital native, what are the right things that are going to help us accomplish that? Because that's how we're going to get judged. That's how we're going to get bonus, keep our jobs, get the next best job, whatever.
Yeah, it's delivering a service. It's not making fancy architectures. So Lee, you started us off on this one, but do you have any final thoughts?
I was going to say, I had a client or a customer for where I was working come up to me one time. They'd read my book. They'd talked, saw me do a couple presentations, and they were really excited to talk to me because they wanted to say, I just want to let you know, we're 100% serverless. Our entire company moved to 100% serverless. Aren't you proud? And I wanted to say, not even close, because that's, I can almost guarantee you that was the wrong answer. I mean, not that anything wrong with serverless, but to presuppose that being 100% serverless had value.
Right.
It's the same thing that we're talking about here, right? Just because you're cloud native doesn't make you good. Doesn't make your application valuable, doesn't make your business successful. What matters is that you have the applications you need to make your business successful using the tools available to you. And the cloud and cloud native technologies and cloud first technologies and serverless technologies and all those things are tools that help you make that happen. There is no silver bullet here, but they're all tools that can help you make your life better and your company better.
Yeah. And I see this a lot in the chat. I'm hearing it. It's a continuum, and it's continuous improvement, and it's going to change. Continuous improvement may mean going backwards at some point because the market has shifted or technology has changed. And so as long as you're keeping that in mind and you're assessing, I think that's the most important takeaway that I've heard is you have to assess what's the right thing for me. It's not necessarily cloud native.
And just by the way, that has important implications for what was in the chat there a little while ago about metrics, right? What are you measuring? Well, it depends why you're doing it. Are you measuring? Maybe you're measuring overall cost, maybe top line revenue, maybe bottom line overall. Maybe you're measuring time to market, idea to cash cycles. There's a lot of things you could be measuring to prove whether cloud native is delivering value to your business. But it absolutely, Bruno, starts with what is your business trying to get from cloud native?
Yep, exactly. More thoughts on this one, or should we move on? Cloud native apps versus cloud native organizations. Who would like to?
I really loved your question on security, Sam, that you put in the chat.
Okay. All right. Can you talk a little bit about that for me then, Zara?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, are you more secure when you move to the cloud? I mean, regardless of being cloud native, I am totally biased. Yes, absolutely. I mean, I was looking at a stat for financial services by Forrester. This was like last year. It takes financial services organizations at least 6 months to complete patching for any new patch that's released. So that's 6 months where they are vulnerable.
Yeah.
If you're on the cloud, some of the responsibility on, basic fundamental stuff is purely automated, right? So as soon as a patch comes in, of course, it's going from 6 months to literally minutes that you can set it up. In addition to that, you now have shared responsibility. So the cloud provider is responsible for, some of the things when it comes to compliance and security versus yourself. So you've really transferred the risk, and they can do it faster and at scale. So definitely, I'm totally biased, and I say yes.
Yeah.
You're hitting a lot of the things.
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, Sam. I just want to interject directly, if I could there. You're hitting a lot of the things that I love to talk about in a lot of my writings. I've written a lot of articles and a lot of mini books on that very topic right there, is that, yes, the cloud is more secure than on-premise. And one of the reasons I use too, in addition to the reasons you give, is that, it is in the cloud provider's best interest to provide you the tools it takes to make your application secure. And they invest heavily in security, and it's in their best interest. And so you're leveraging these large corporations' heavy use of security, heavy knowledge about security, and they provide you the tools that it takes for you to do the simple things you need to do to keep your application secure. So rather than reinventing the wheel, use the best practices from your cloud provider, and you end up with a more secure app than you could ever have in your own data center.
And I mean, I want to be clear and transparent too. I mean, I don't think there is ever going to be a point where we can say that something is 100% secure. It just doesn't exist. It's not going to happen. It is an iterative, ongoing process where we're going to continue.
An evolutionary war is what it is.
Exactly.
Yeah. Andy or Mitch or Bruno, do you have any comments on security, or do you want to talk about cloud native apps versus cloud native orgs? Take your pick, and I'm going to start with Mitch.
I'm going to jump I love the security topic too, but I'm going to jump back to the cloud native apps versus organizations. We tend to label ourselves around a set of things that we do and that we use. Like, it's not unusual to say we're a Microsoft shop, or we're a Linux shop, or we're a SQL Server shop, we're a whatever. And, it usually means there's a set of technologies that we commonly use and build things from, because we benefit from leveraging the expertise that we've developed or continue to do that. I think that's to me, that's what the cloud native apps versus organization is. That something you're far enough along that you say, okay, this is how we're going to do things going forward. It's not a religious debate. It's not a, binary yes or no, but those set of technologies or principles around how we design applications and implement those, and you can stack it from DevOps on up, right? And all the things that you want to adopt with what cloud native means to you. That's what I think cloud native organization, when we use it, I would use that term that way.
Mm-hmm. Andy or Bruno?
Yeah, look, I would actually just push back a little bit on the security aspect. I think this is all case dependent. You look at, especially software supply chain right now is a very big issue for my clients. They're constantly asking us in RFPs and so forth about who we use for our providers, where our service is hosted, what third-party cloud tools we use as well. And so I think it's very important to understand that you can still be super insecure and have a cloud-native environment. It depends on how you implement it, what controls you've got internally, what your level of governance is around code compliance, code review, code checking. We've seen major breaches happen through that software supply model of cloud native organizations. I do agree that, with Microsoft spending that level and other cloud providers are really expert in this. But you know what? I know some data center professionals who are absolutely experts in security and compliance as well. So I just wanted to, again, it's a pragmatic discussion. I hope I'm not being too churlish to say that it really does depend on the individual business and even the individual cybersecurity experts within that business.
Favorite
absolutely
answer.
Valid point. Just because you use the cloud, the reverse is not true. Just because you use the cloud, therefore you're secure. That is absolutely not the case. You have to invest in to make your application secure. I think the thing that gets me are, I used to travel a lot. Sam, you remember how much I used to travel when I was in New Relic. But I spent a lot of time, especially in Europe, and it was amazing how geographic it was, how and industry and geographic specific. Certain industries in certain geographies just would not accept the cloud because they did not trust it. And fact of the matter is, the cloud is safe, the cloud is secure, the cloud works, and the cloud helps you with all those things. And that's all I think that's all that Zara was trying to say. That's all that I'm trying to say, is that the cloud actually gives you benefits in security. Nothing is a panacea. Nothing solves security for you. Absolutely. But the cloud does give you benefits.
Yeah, and that's the different, that's the delineation, right, Lee, that I think saying that something is 100% secure, just not going to happen. The cloud is not 100% secure. But is it an improvement? Probably. Like Andy said, and I do agree with the statement and phrase that it's case by case. But probably it is an improvement. And there are certain industries where, right now it seems like they would probably never be 100% on the cloud. They would always go with either a multi-cloud or a hybrid cloud model, which is fine. And the fundamental reason for that is security and control on data, right? So I think that is the reality, Andy, and you're absolutely right as well.
So Bruno, you've been uncharacteristically quiet.
Well, I'm waiting for my turn politely here.
That's nice.
And I was also debating which topic I want to talk about. I could not decide.
Right. You can choose either. It's a big moment.
Kevin Mitnick would tell you, your most insecure thing is the person. So can you move that person to the cloud is the question. And how easy is that going to happen? Look, but, I do agree with Zara on generally in principle that when you move to the cloud, you have to sort of adapt to a different responsibility model, right? You are living in a shared responsibility model. A lot of people who don't want to go into the cloud just don't want to share. They're afraid that the other people won't do their job. They will spend the money doing it themselves. They think they're better at it, right? But again, if you're in the cloud, you've got multiple benefits of how to get secure, right? One is somebody else is taking care of a bunch of stuff, hopefully well, right? And so far, I think, the cloud providers have proven that they can do it relatively well. Second is, if you're not, for most companies who are not like us, and most companies are not like Sumo. Sumo is a 10-year, 12-year-old company born in the cloud. We have nothing on-prem. Even though that's a lie, we have endpoints, we have laptops, we have things that have to be secure, right? So nobody's ever fully in the cloud. And you think about like traditional companies who are going to have so much stuff now spread all over the place, right? So it's a little bit of a hard thing to say that you are safer in the cloud. For most people, the reality is they're going to still have to secure all that stuff on-prem and do 6-month patching, right? And then have to figure out how to do cloud responsibility model. But, but I do agree that technology-wise and paradigm-wise, it is a little bit of a clean slate. It is a little bit of a Adam Smith. You specialize on things you do well. You secure your app because you know your app. You run your app because you know your app. And let somebody else who's better at IT, at stacking, racking servers, building data centers, networks, and other things, secure that, right? And so I do believe that there are benefits there. Generally, that's why we are, a lot of companies are moving to the cloud is because they're going to focus on what they know. They know their business, they know their apps, they know whatever, right? So, I think it's it's going to take a long time for people to kind of figure out where they fit. But I do believe that long term, it's probably the right way to go.
We also don't ever say, saying the cloud is secure is like saying my code is bug free. Yeah, it's not. It never will be. And yes, it's a shared responsibility model, but there's a price. There is a minimum price to pay, right? We expect from cloud providers, software providers, to have good processes in place, have the competent people, et cetera. And sometimes we use those services because I can't hire the security people as a medium or small business that I need to support my business. So I rely on others to do that, or I can. But I'm not going to, I'm going to leverage their capital instead of mine. There's lots of reasons why we do this, but we expect the people that we work with, and they're not fail-safe either. They're going to have vulnerabilities, they're going to have bugs, et cetera. And it's just a matter of can those companies respond when they do, when it happens. It's about response. It's not just about prevention.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. All right, we are on to our last topic. We have 9 minutes left. So before we get into the topic, I'm actually going to read the names of the folks that won our $25, $50, or whatever gift certificate so that I don't forget, because I'm always forgetting. I make lots of mistakes, like the mistake earlier with the polling questions, which turned out to be a really great thing. So maybe this is going to unlock some really cool innovation by me reading it right now. So I'm apologizing up front if I get your name wrong. Sashaya P, Kin L, Innocent E, and Sunil G. Congratulations. You should be hearing from Cody or someone from DevOps.com after this. Our last topic of conversation here, and I think we've talked about a couple of them just in the conversation we've already had, but more specifically, what are some barriers that folks are going to encounter on their way to being cloud native? And somebody already put something in the chat about basically culture and fiefdoms, and I don't remember who that was, but that's, in my mind, people are always the hardest part of any technology problem. So getting people on board with that, I think, takes a little bit of work. But let's see. Andy, what are your thoughts on this? I'm going to have you start.
Yeah, well, Sam, I totally agree with you on that. Technology's easy, people are hard, right? And I've always said that. But it really is true. Skills are a really important thing. We're going through a lot of cloud transformation at QUMU, and skills transfer is really important. We've got really strong ways to do that internally, but that's posed a part of the biggest issue, not least because as you go through that transformation, here I'm talking about businesses that need to move to cloud native, not who start as cloud native, finding the right people, having the right skills, getting the skills transferred while you're still maintaining some of the, for want of a better word, traditional code and systems. So yeah, absolutely, I would agree that people, but more specifically, just skills and knowledge transfer to make sure that the right people are getting the right skills to be able to build on the right platform at the right time has been one of our bigger challenges that we've been addressing.
Interesting. All right. Let's see. Zara, what are your thoughts around some of the challenges that people run into?
Totally agree with Andy. There is just no two ways about it. I think just there is a shortage of talent in the market to begin with. There are organizations that are competing for this talent. And then there is the whole aspect of transformation. So there is training, but then there is also culture on how to think about it differently. And then there is the process change, which then it's a new learning for people to operate differently. Then on top of that, there is the operating model that completely needs to change. There is a reorganization of people. So it's just a lot of changes all at once for people, which is overwhelming. And hence it's just the hardest and probably something that takes the longest. If you want to move to the cloud, I think you can probably move. But how do you bring people along that journey by training them, reorganizing the organization, as far as the operating model, the culture, and the process update? That's a challenge for sure. And there is no one solution for that. I think it, depends on the organization on how to really build that customized plan of attack, if you will.
Yeah, David in the chat just brought up another really great point is generational knowledge transfer, tribal knowledge. right? As you do migrate stuff to the cloud, I don't know that that's so cloud native specific, or it's just a problem in IT in general. People who are building things understand how it works, and then they go away. And anybody who owns a house and has tried to fix something that somebody else put in, it's hard because you don't know what were they thinking when they built this, and what other things is it connected to. So you can't just unplug wires, which I've discovered. So interesting. So let's see, who else? Lee, what are your thoughts on this? Some of the challenges that you've seen folks run into in your consulting time?
Sure. Yeah. So, organizational momentum is the hardest problem that people run into. And one of the first things I talk to a client about when they come to me and say they want to do a cloud migration, or they want to do a microservice migration, or they want to do any sort of transformational migration, is I talk about what do you want to accomplish and what do you consider your goal. Because what I find a lot of organizations will do is they'll start down the path, they'll have this clear idea of what they want, and they'll underestimate how expensive it is to get there and what's involved in getting there. And mostly it's underestimating the people elements of it. So I completely agree with that part of it. And what I've seen happen more than once is, a company will start down the process, like let's say move to service-based architecture. They'll take a monolith, they want to move to services, and they start down the process and they start splitting off a few services here and there and making this complex mess of things because they're only partly deconstructing and only doing things partially right. And they just find it's just so much work that they decide, nope, I'm just going to stop here. This is too much. And then they end up worse than they were before. Because most of these projects, most of these transformations that people go through, you go down before you go up.
Yes.
And it's so easy to, when you're at the lowest point here, to say, I got to stop investing. I can't afford to do this. I'm giving up. And I've seen that happen more often than not. So what I counsel my clients is, this is going to happen. Things are going to look horrible for a while. Don't worry, it will get better. And wait till you get out the other side and then start seeing benefits before you decide whether it's the right thing to do. And you have to go through that transformation. And so premature stopping a project is one of the biggest struggles I run into.
That's great. I love that. That's so great, Lee. Thank you for sharing that. Mitch, I'm going to throw it to you, and then I'm going to finalize everything with Bruno. So, Mitch, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, rarely is a change like implementing going to cloud native happening in isolation. You may be also working on, we want to do stateless, we want to do DevOps, we want to do lots of things. So I tend to, just to use an analogy, I have a friend who's a ballroom dancer. And she reminds me that not everything we do is a couple's dance. Sometimes we line dance, like country line dancing, and we have multiple lines happening at once. So one of the great things about watching line dancing is people have a blast. Whether you're the rookie, you're clueless, stateless, or you're you can do it and make every move look like you're a pro. Those things are happening in parallel. So it's a journey. It always takes longer than we think it will. And there are multiple things occurring at once. So working together on it is going to help us get there farther, faster. That's where I would focus.
Nice. Thank you, Mitch. Bruno, bring us home. And then I have one slide I'm going to put up while you're bringing us home for our next episode, which is going to be happening next month. You can scan this QR code and come and join us as we're going to talk about some primary research that we've done in conjunction with the DevOps Institute around the SRE Pulse to get a state of the SRE in large and small organizations. So Bruno, take it away.
All right, I'll be quick here. I think one of the things that stands in people's way of making a journey to the cloud and cloud native is that, it's fear of failure and unwillingness to fail and unwillingness to experiment, which is a barrier to learning. And ultimately, it's one of those things where I've heard from many companies that have attempted a whole hog approach, hundreds of apps all at once, major architectural changes, lack of talent stopped them. It was too expensive. It was more expensive than on-prem. Essentially, unwillingness to experiment, let failure teach you, and learn from those failures. Start small and actually, find ways of dipping your toe. That's kind of what I would add to that thing that can be in your way.
I love it. I love it. Well, we are now at the very top of the hour. We've nailed the timing. I'm so proud of this team. Audience, you were awesome. Thank you so much for joining us in the chat. Panelists, thank you very much. And hopefully we'll see everybody again next month.
Thanks, everyone.
Definitely.
Thank you, everybody.
Cheers,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.